Boys, what's good? It's Herb, and today we're here with a post-regular season NBA mock draft. The last mock draft did so well, it's sitting in almost 2,000 views. I thank you boys so much for that, and hopefully you guys will love this one just as much. I'd really appreciate it if you'd subscribe. Just getting started on YouTube, and if you'd like the video, that'd really help brother out. But let's get into it. The regular season ended yesterday. Every team has finished its 2021 NBA regular season, and the play-in is set to start tomorrow. But the top 10 teams are set for this draft, and I think it's really interesting now to take a look at it and to get into it. So let's. The Houston Rockets are picking first on the clock, the worst team in the league this season. I mean, no surprise that they've been really lacking talent since James Harden left. And this one will be the easiest pick in the draft. The consensus number one overall pick, Cade Cunningham out of Oklahoma State, the 6'8" freshman point guard out of Oklahoma State, will be the first pick in this draft. Pretty much no matter who gets the pick. I know they already have John Wall at point guard, but Cade Cunningham is for the future, and he is likely the best player in this draft. The second pick is the Detroit Pistons. I'm sure they're happy to have a pick this high. I believe they picked 6th last year, taking point guard Killian Hayes. I think they're set at point guard relatively for the future anyway with Hayes, so I think that takes Suggs off their intrigue list here. I think they're set at small forward, power forward-ish with Jeremy Grant. So again, I think that takes Kuminga off their board here. So I think this pick will come down to between Evan Mobley and Jalen Green. Because right now, I mean, they don't have a great shooting guard, and they don't have a great center. They have Josh Jackson and Dennis Smith Jr., who can both kind of play the two guard for them, and they have Mason Plumlee at center. But Plumlee likely will not end up being a starting center for a really long time down the road for them. I think since they already have Killian Hayes, they don't necessarily look at as much at guard here. I think they take Evan Mobley, the 7-foot center freshman from USC. Very good talent, athletic, great shot blocker. Makes sense for the Pistons here to build around Jeremy Grant, Killian Hayes, and now Evan Mobley. All right. The Magic are on the clock with the third pick, and I think they're ecstatic because this pick fell to them. I think Jalen Green is arguably the most talented player in this draft class, and him being here on the board at 3 for a rebuilding Magic team is fantastic. They probably wouldn't have minded Mobley either, because I think Carter and Mobley both have positional versatility where they can play power forward and center, but I think they're happy here to get arguably the most talented player in the draft in Jalen Green from the G League Ignite team. I mean, he is a guy that is a natural scorer of the basketball, extremely athletic, a guy that you can build a team around. And on a team that's lacking as much talent as this is a huge win for them. They're pretty set at point guard with Markelle Fultz and Cole Anthony, but to shore up that shooting guard, even you could stretch him to a small forward position. Jalen Green from the Ignite. The Cavs are on the clock at 4, and if you look at the Cavs roster right now, they have Sexton and Garland for their backcourt, Okoro at the 3, who they drafted 5th overall last season, and Jarrett Allen as their center of the future. What position does that leave? That leaves power forward. So I think this will definitely be a power forward pick. I don't think Kevin Love will be super important to this team long term. I think Larry Nance is nice, but I think they're looking at an upgrade, and I think they go the absolute best power forward in this draft, might be, and Jonathan Kuminga, also of the G League Ignite team, and I think this is a great pick for them. I think they're set for the future at pretty much every other position outside of power forward, and this locks up power forward. I think the Cavs can be a team that will be really good moving forward, and Kuminga will help to push that notion. The Thunder are picking 5th. The Thunder right now currently have Shai Gilgeous-Alexander as their best player, who has played a good amount of shooting guard in his career. I mean, it says shooting guard is a severe need. I don't necessarily agree with that. I think Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is a shooting guard in this league, and the probably not the best point guard, but the second best point guard in this draft is still available. I know it says shooting guard with Jalen Suggs, but this man was a point guard, leading one of the best teams in college basketball as a freshman, almost winning them the national championship. Got them to the championship game, lost pretty badly to Baylor, but I mean, he took them a very far way in the playoffs, and I think it was arguably that Jalen Suggs was the best player on that Gonzaga team. So I think this is an easy pick. They have a fantastic backcourt of the future after this with Jalen Suggs and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. The Warriors have the 6th pick currently, and this is coming from Minnesota. This, I believe, is from the D'Angelo Russell Andrew Wiggins deal, and I mean, the Warriors are very lucky to get this pick because I think it's top 5 protected. If this falls directly at 6, this is the best pick that the Warriors could have, and they would be ecstatic to get a pick this high because they're competing for a playoff spot and they still get to pick at 6 after picking a super talented player last year in James Wiseman. I mean, at this point, all Tier 1 players are off the board. I think the 5 that have already gone, being Cunningham, Mobley, Jalen Green, Jalen Suggs, and Jonathan Kuminga, are the undisputed Tier 1 prospects in this draft. Possible build your team around level players, whereas the next ones could be, maybe a 2nd to 3rd option on your championship team. There's still some good players here, some players that arguably have all-star potential, but probably aren't the same tier as the guys above them. But still, I mean, it's a great pick for the Warriors here that they get to pick this high. Warriors, I mean, they have some needs, I'd say, with Klay Thompson being, relatively doubted for the future. Who knows what's going to happen with Klay. I'd say you could go Keon Johnson. Wiggins has been playing really well, and I'd consider him a small forward. So I think Jalen Johnson's probably off the board here. They have Wiseman for the future. They have Draymond and Steph, so I'd say point guard, small forward, power forward, and center are relatively, secure. So I think they take shooting guard Keon Johnson, the best player from the Tennessee duo with him and Jaden Springer, 2 fantastic players that will both get drafted here. But Keon Johnson will go to the Warriors at 6, a shooting guard to back up Klay Thompson, and if he's not the same, maybe eventually take his spot, but probably not in the next couple years. All right, the Raptors are at 7. The Raptors had a kind of a disappointing season. I think people still thought they'd be a playoff team, with the way that they played last year. After Kawhi left, I believe they're still 2nd in the Eastern Conference heading into the playoffs. But the Raptors this year were just not quite the same. They had a lot of COVID stuff. They had to play all year in Tampa Bay instead of Toronto. So, I mean, it's basically like every game was an away game for the Raptors. It was not super fun for them over the course of the season, I don't believe. And, I mean, I get that. I get not wanting to play in a city away from your own. It's kind of lousy. So, I mean, they're pretty set at a lot of positions. I'd say center is a relative need because I don't think Chris Boucher is necessarily the long-term answer. But there's not a center in this area that makes sense. So, I mean, power forward doesn't make sense. They have Siakam. They have Fred VanVleet at one of the guard positions. They have OG Anunoby and Gary Trent manning down the small forward. I think you make a proactive move here to keep Fred VanVleet at the shooting guard position, and you take the college champion Davion Mitchell out of Baylor, the point guard that led Baylor to the championship, shooting up draft boards throughout the college season, started as a likely 2nd round pick, will end as a top 10 pick, and Davion Mitchell is the pick here to pair with Fred VanVleet in that backcourt. Alright, with the 8th pick we have the New Orleans Pelicans on the clock. I would have liked a point guard here, but with Cade Cunningham, Jalen Suggs, and Davion Mitchell off the board, I think taking another point guard in this spot would be a reach. Even though I think Lonzo Ball will leave in free agency this summer, they just picked Kyra Lewis Jr. last season, who was a point guard at the back end of the lottery. So the Pelicans could look at another position here. I'd say power forward and small forward are definitely locked up with Ingram and Williamson. So I think at this position right now, we're probably looking shooting guard or center. And to me, that has to be center Isaiah Jackson. out of Kentucky. It says power forward here. He played center all year. He's 6'11". He's going to play center in the NBA. You could argue maybe we should try to get Zion some shooting, but I think Steven Adams, while a serviceable big, will probably not be in New Orleans for 3 seasons. I think he'll be out before then. So I think they take the center Isaiah Jackson out of Kentucky. The Sacramento Kings are on the clock at number 9. And this is an interesting one because the Kings, I think, are pretty set at guard. They're pretty set at center because I think Richaun Holmes is one of the best young centers in the NBA. But I believe Richaun Holmes is a restricted free agent this offseason, so who knows? Maybe someone will offer him the bag. But they have De'Aaron Fox, they have Tyrese Halliburton, they have Buddy Hield. Their guard positions are set. It seems like Harrison Barnes might be traded this offseason because rumors were circulated at the deadline. So I think small forward makes sense here. They go with the guy with the most upside in Jalen Johnson out of Duke. A smooth scorer, an athletic finisher, a guy that played pretty well in the games he did play, but did not end up playing that many games for Duke. Opted out of the season about halfway through. Some people question his work ethic, say he quit on the team. I think all that's a stretch. I think Jalen Johnson is the most talented player on the board, and I think he makes sense here at number 9 to the Sacramento Kings. The Magic now are picking again, and the Magic picked Jalen Green with their first pick at the 2-guard position. And now with Isaac likely at their small forward or power forward, I think they can take either forward spot right here. Terrence Ross, who knows how long he'll be there, but Jonathan Isaac is their probably best player right now. Maybe Jalen Green comes in as their best player right away, but I think they need a forward here. I think they do. Franz Wagner is more of a spacer, a guy that's more of a developmental guy, which I mean the Magic could do, but I think they want to take guys that can contribute right away. They don't really have the luxury of like just setting players behind stars because they don't have stars. So maybe that long-term development never happens because they don't have anybody to set that great example. So I think they take the big Scotty Barnes, 6'9" small forward out of Florida State, because they saw how well Patrick Williams did this year. Patrick Williams was another 6-man from Florida State who guys thought, oh, he's not going to do anything. You know, he was a 6-man. He came off the bench in college, but had a very good season for the Bulls. I think Scotty Barnes is a better version of Patrick Williams, and I think the Magic will see that and take him to pair with Jalen Green, Wendell Carter, Jonathan Isaac, and the point guard duo of Fultz and Anthony. The Hornets on the clock at 11, being put here as the worst play-in team right now, which I think is a bit of a stretch, but I mean they had the worst record of the play-in teams, I guess. Slightly below the San Antonio Spurs, but the Hornets were good this year. They were. I mean, I think that's fair to say. They were good this year. And I mean, if you look at this team, I'd say the one thing they need is a good center. I like Cody Zeller as like a filler center, but he's not a long-term center. I mean, I think you take the MVP of the Turkish league, which is Alperen Sengun, who is only 6'9". I know he's not a great shooter, but he's great at finishing around the rim, putbacks, offensive rebounds. Alperen Sengun is good at all of those things, and he becomes the first international player off the board to the Hornets at pick number 11. So the Spurs on the clock at number 12. The Spurs are a team that is kind of in the middle of like a rebuilding and a team that can push for the playoffs. I think DeMar DeRozan will likely leave in free agency, as will Rudy Gay, probably Patty Mills. They have a lot of older guys that are going to be free agents. So I mean, it comes down to who do you think they're gonna pick here? You know, like they have a lot of options. I think they do have a very plentiful amount of options. And I think that they're pretty stacked at guard right now. They have Keldon Johnson at power forward, but in terms of small forward, they don't have a ton, you know? So I think this comes down to whether you like Wagner or whether you like Kispert better. And in terms of just my opinion on it, I think Mo Wagner kind of set the stage for Franz Wagner to be picked lower. Because Mo Wagner, while picked high, hasn't necessarily done a ton in the NBA. So I think they're going to take the experienced, great shooting Corey Kispert out of Gonzaga. All right, the Pacers at 13. I like the Pacers, I do, but they had a lot of struggles throughout the year. I mean, they have some positions filled, right? I mean, power forward, they don't need that. They have Domantas Sabonis. They have Miles Turner at center, Brogdon at point guard. They have LeVert at the 2 even, but it is now reported that TJ Warren, who is their current small forward, wants out. And I mean, he doesn't like the coach, so I guess I get it, whatever. It happens. Sometimes you'll have guys that just won't like coaches. But I think they're going to take the tall shooting guard, Josh Giddey, out of Australia. I would say he's the best international player in this draft. Very athletic, good finisher. Not a great shooter, but looks like a jump shot that can develop. And I think it's just a pick that makes sense. I do like Josh Giddey here. If I was a GM, I'm looking at Josh Giddey as a maybe top 10 pick, like a possible top 10 pick. So, I mean, you look at him here, and he's fallen a little bit, but I think he makes sense to the Pacers at 13. The Grizzlies have the 14th pick, and if I'm looking at positions they have filled, it's point guard with Ja, power forward with Triple J, Jonas Valanciunas at center, and arguably Dillon Brooks at the 2 or 3. So I think you can take 2 or 3 here. You have Desmond Bane already, but I mean, what's wrong with a little more scoring, you know what I'm saying? So I'm going to take the best scorer in this class, which is Cameron Thomas, shooting guard out of LSU. Cam Thomas came in and lit up college, averaging like 24 points per game as a freshman, which is basically unheard of. He played so well as a freshman, and I think it's really impressive that he could come out and score that much and play the minutes that he did. This guy was logging 40 minutes consistently when the games were 40 minutes. Like, he just wouldn't come out. So his endurance is great, his scoring is great. His shooting and scoring next to Ja's athleticism I think would be super fun to watch, and I think Cam Thomas is a fun pick here at 14 for the Grizzlies. The Wizards are picking at 15, who are surprising that they're this far back, especially the way they started out, because they started out the season really rough. They basically took 2 weeks off because of COVID. They were one of the teams hit worse by COVID. And I mean, they're a team that really turned it around at the end of the year. They did. But they're a team that needs big guys too. Like, that's not necessarily related to COVID, but they're a team that needs big guys, right? They have Thomas Bryant, who is coming off a severe injury. They have Daniel Gafford, who I think is a free agent at the end of the year, if I can find him. He has 3 years left on a cheap deal, but just because he's contributed now doesn't mean you can't find a better center. And I think Usman Garuba can play center. He's one of those old school bigs that'll toss people around. He might not be super fun to watch for a lot of people, but he'll throw people around. He'll throw some bodies down there. He'll get physical, and he needs to put on a little weight probably, but his strength is there. And he's not a guy that's going to flash or wow you, but they already have Russ and Beal who will flash and wow you. So what more do they need on that end, right? I think going big makes sense here, and I think they're going to take a guy that's physical but less flashy in Garuba out of Spain. Celtics picking at 16 here. It says power forward and center are severe needs for them. I would agree with center. I like Robert Williams, but I do think they need a big man. Jason Tatum is really their power forward. They don't need a power forward, but they do need a center, and I think Kai Jones is a center. They have him listed as power forward. Kai Jones, while playing power forward at Texas, it's because they already had Greg Brown who played center. Texas is loaded with big guys and puts out big guys that contribute. Look at, Jarrett Allen and Miles Turner. They put out guys like Mo Bamba too, who haven't contributed quite as much, but they put out NBA caliber centers. So I think this pick is good for the Celtics because they need a big guy, and I think he can come in and play relatively soon. He's a sophomore, he's a little more experienced. It's not like you're taking an 18-year-old, so he can come in, he can play well, and I think it makes sense. They need a center. The Celtics need a center, and that's why they go Kai Jones at pick 16. Warriors back on the clock at 17, coming off picking Keon Johnson in their last pick. I think right here it's best player available. It's going to be a bench guy for them no matter what, so I think you go best guy available, which to me right now is Franz Wagner, who's been falling. It might be a little more of a developmental guy, but that's fine because the Warriors have guys that he can play behind, and maybe long term he comes and he gets some significant minutes, but that might not come right away. And I think that's okay for Wagner. I think he's a guy that needs to develop, and already being a shooting kind of forward to develop behind guys like Steph Curry and Klay Thompson is a blessing. So I think Franz Wagner would love this pick, and I think the Warriors are okay with this pick too. The Thunder are picking again at pick 18, coming from Miami. I think this is a Trevor Ariza deal, I believe. It was a weird deal, but I think it's a Trevor Ariza deal. The Thunder here can do whatever they want. You know, they have some more significant needs than guard. They already went guard with the last pick, but the board right now is just filled with very solid guards. So I don't really think that they can avoid taking one. If I'm the Thunder right here, I go best player available, and I'm going to go scorer. Because Sharif Cooper is more of a passer, whereas Tre Mann is a fantastic scorer. The step back game is on point for Tre Mann. He'd be a great scorer off the bench. Picture Jordan Clarkson, picture Eric Gordon, picture explosive scoring guys off the bench like that. And that's what Tre Mann could be for this Thunder team. The Knicks are picking at 19, and I think quickly right now is probably going to be more of a shooting guard. They're playing Barrett at the small forward, Randall at the power forward, and either Robinson or Noel at center. So I think point guard makes the most sense here. And Bouknight is a shooting guard. Moody can play point. Dosunmu is also a shooting guard. But they need an assist man. And with Rose getting up there in age, he looks good now, but who knows when he'll decline. I think Sharif Cooper is a fantastic pick here for the Knicks. A high-profile guy that's had a huge following since high school. He is ready for the lights, and the Knicks would love him. The Hawks are picking at 20. They don't have any huge needs. They have Clint Capella already. I think what they really need is a defensive guy, which is not as much Moody. It's not as much Dosunmu. It's not as much Butler. It's James Bouknight, who's athletic but can defend as well. He's a guy that really strikes me as a Spurs player, but with the Spurs passing him by, I think it makes sense for the Hawks here. The Hawks need defense. They're a pretty good scoring team right now, but they're a team that needs defense. And I think James Bouknight can provide that for them, also with a little scoring. Knicks back on the clock at 21. Now you take best player available. Even though they have quickly, they might take a guard. You know what? I think they go power forward, which is really Zaire Williams. He's listed as a shooting guard. That's not true. I don't know what his listing is. He's a power forward. He's a stretch the floor guy. He's a forward that stretches the floor. And he fits well with this Knicks team. They need some shooters. They have some decent shooting now, but I think you can never have enough shooters, you know? So I think they go Zaire Williams, a guy that's fallen a little bit from his preseason projection, but a guy that fits with this Knicks team. The Rockets are picking at 22. This is best player available for me. This is easy. This is Moses Moody. Moses Moody is a guy that was top 10 projected for a long time. Played pretty well in the SEC tournament, but didn't play quite as well in March Madness. And it's a reason he's falling a little bit, but he's big. He's a decent defender. Not fantastic, but a guy that can develop on the defensive end. He's a guy that can grow into shooting. He's super athletic though, great finisher. I think he makes sense for the Rockets here at 22. Lakers at 23. They want Ayo Dosunmu. This is an easy pick for me. Ayo Dosunmu wants to be Kobe. He's a huge Kobe fan. It's a good story for the Lakers. He's posing with his Big Ten trophy like he was Kobe Bryant. I mean, Ayo Dosunmu loves the Lakers, loves Kobe, and would love to be on that team. It's a great story and one that should make people happy. All right, the Rockets have already went 2 guards. I think they have to go big here. They can go small forward Marcus Bagley out of Arizona State, but I think they'll take a center to back up Christian Wood. Maybe they play Christian Wood at a little power forward, who knows. But they go the junior Charles Bassey out of Western Kentucky. Has been one of the best big guys in college basketball for years, and he can come in and contribute right away for a young Rockets team. All right, the Clippers at 25, I say need a point guard. I don't like Patrick Beverley at point guard. I don't think Rondo's contract is that big. They have Terrence Mann, but he's probably a little more of a shooting guard. So I think they go Jared Butler, one of the leaders of the best team in the country this past season of Baylor. I mean, pretty good scorer, very solid passer, good defender. He's not going to wow you, but he's going to do all the dirty work. He's going to play consistently, and that's what the Clippers need. The Nuggets are picking up pick 26. With Millsap getting a little older, I think you could argue they need some forward depth to back up guys like Aaron Gordon and Will Barton. So the best forward on the board right now is Marcus Bagley, brother of Marvin Bagley, by the way, out of Arizona State. I mean, it just makes sense, right? Positional need. The Nuggets need a forward, and Marcus Bagley fits that bill. The Nets are on the board at 27. I mean, looking at this here, what do the Nets need? They have Claxton, but that's really at its center because I don't like DeAndre Jordan at center. He's not that good anymore. So I think they need a big guy. They could take the shooting Petrusev, provides a little more of like a differentiation than what they have with Claxton. But I think they're going to take the young, promising big man out of Texas and Greg Brown. The second Texas big man taken in the first round. Texas puts out good big men, and they're going to put out a couple this year. And Greg Brown is a pick that should be intriguing to the Nets. All right, the Sixers are picking at 28. They're ranked first in the East. They can do whatever they want. I think they want guys with more potential. Chris Duarte is very athletic, but is older. I believe he's either a junior or a senior out of Oregon. Super athletic, but not the pick, I would say, for them. Asmus, a sophomore, very good scorer, but probably not the most upside. Henry is a good player, but I think they're taking Jaden Springer. Once a projected lottery pick, a member of that great duo for Tennessee with Keon Johnson, one of the best freshman duos in the country, and I think Jaden Springer is a guy that can come in, maybe be their point guard of the future. They've been looking for one. They want to move Ben Simmons off ball a little bit, maybe down low a little more, and I think Jaden Springer is a guy that can be that. Maybe Maxey at the 2, Springer at the 1 for the future, and they could still have Harris, Simmons, and Embiid alongside Springer and Maxey, and I think that's super intriguing, and the Sixers would love to see that happen. Suns are picking at 29. They have some glue guys already in Mikal Bridges. They have a little bit of shooting in Cam Johnson and Devin Booker, but I think they can use a little more shooting. You could argue for defense, but I'm going to take shooting and scoring in terms of Max Asmus, sophomore out of Oral Roberts, the best story in college basketball this year. All right, so the Jazz picking last. I think they probably go best player available, which to me isn't any of these top 4. It's Terence Shannon, shooting guard out of Texas Tech. He's a sophomore. He played with Mac McClung this year. They were a solid team all year. Top 10 team in the country for most of the year. And it could be argued that Shannon was the best player on that team for most of the time. Extremely athletic. I mean, they have Donovan Mitchell already, but you can always use a backup. I think Terence Shannon makes sense. I say that a lot, apparently. But he's super athletic and a guy that will be fun to watch in the NBA. All right, that was today's mock draft. I hope you boys enjoyed. If you did, please hit that like button. It helped me out a lot. I'd really appreciate that. And, hit that subscribe button. It helped a brother out. And that's all I have. So if you want to talk about anything in the comments, let me know down below. But that's it. Hope you guys enjoyed. Peace.